Paul Peters, he is a workplace expert, joins me now. Paul, thanks so much for joining me.
You're entirely welcome.
So, I think there is the perception out there that this younger generation, who now makes up a huge chunk of the workforce, they're just lazy. And, bosses, you hear it from them, they complain about this generation. But This report is saying, well, actually, maybe it's the company, maybe it's the boss that should be making some changes. And it's not necessarily that this generation is lazy.
Yeah, I actually come at this from two areas. One, as a father of 3 Gen Z, so I live it. I also am a boss. I'm an employer in North Carolina. I have a pretty large company serving folks with intellectual disability, mental health, and substance abuse. So I come at it from both of those standpoints. And I've told people we came off within the last year to two off a remote environment that was forced upon us worldwide to live in that type of environment. So people were working in a remote in their homes. Many of them may have had a suit jacket, but wearing pajamas as they're working. And so then they're coming back to work as that has been, been freed up. And so people got into a habit of how and what they wanted work to look like. And now they're coming back into the mindset. I was the one that chose how I wanted to work. I could work out of Starbucks. I could work in my lounge chair. And so you're seeing some resistance because it's been kind of trained. And if I can be as productive in the work environment, work-life balance is very important for Gen Zs. And myself and fellow employees, our employers have to be sensitive to the new environment that people are working in.
Yeah, there's also been a big push to, as we talked about remote work, getting back into the office, like physically. And we're even seeing that now with some of the federal government, that has been being pushed right now, just some of the requirements anyway from the federal government. Is there any validity to the fact that if you work remotely that you're not as productive? Or is that bogus?
Yeah, I think that's somewhat bogus. A lot of people can be very productive in a remote environment. What I have done is I've actually brought on some HR consultants to help look at the culture of my company as we kind of actually were in remote prior to when we've been able to blend into the new environment. But we have to look at what the employers are looking at. What they want to value, they want fairness, and they want clarity on what their expectations are. If you can work successfully in a remote environment and still have accountability, i.e. get your work done, then why not allow them to do that? I think that's what employers have to look at. We've got to be flexible. I'm a baby boomer. I grew up in the mentality, you come to work, you clock in, you clock out. I mean, you were there. And so we live in a different environment now, and we as employers have to be sensitive, still accountable. We've got to make sure people are getting their job done. But if they can get it done in a Starbucks, why should we complain?
Yeah, no, I think accountability, that's the main word, that if you are able to hold people still accountable and they are able to get their work done, then why should maybe a boss necessarily care? On the other hand, though, if it is a job that does require you to be physically in the office, like for us here in our newsroom, I mean, you need to be in the newsroom, and we get that. But I think that it's probably hard to go back, right? I mean, like if you've been remote, it would probably be difficult, I would think, to probably rein some people back in all of a sudden.
Yeah, people are reassessing if they worked in an office mentality or office space. They are reassessing, is that the environment? Is that the career for me? So a lot of people going back to school, they're just reevaluating what is it that, because it's really based on what's most important. What did they value? And let's say they were doing something in an office 9 to 5, but they've gotten so used to not doing that. And the job opportunities are pretty immense now. So people have some flexibility and some choices.
Yeah. For folks who are kind of listening to our discussion right now, and maybe they're working for a boss that they're not really excited about, I mean, I'm assuming that they're going to be looking for another job pretty quickly.
Correct. And I think employers need to be sensitive and kind of look in the mirror and say, how am I as a boss? Would I want to work for me? That's what I have done. I want to make sure that my culture, my company is successful. And the only one that can make that happen is me. And am I being the kind of boss that people would want to work for? So I think employers need to take a look at, am I an effective boss? We need to get back and taking the classes that are up to speed, not your classes from the 1950s. We need to make sure we have the leadership style that is Gen Zs are going to respond to.
Yeah. Any other information that you think is important for someone who is watching and listening to our discussion right now, whether they are an employee or they are that boss in that company?
Well, I think it's very important that employers take the step and they meet with their employees and they find out what's most important to them, because Gen Zs are going to respond if they feel valued, if they feel appreciated, if they have a voice. And I think that is the biggest and first step. The employers have to take the first step. If they don't, employees will, and they will walk.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Paul, thanks so much for your insight. We really appreciate it today. Really fascinating discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.